The Sciforror Film Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Sciforror Film Podcast. I am Andy Walker. I'm here with my son Scott. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Val.
Hello. And we are joined this week, as I said last week, by the director of the film we reviewed last week, Mr. Sleep. This is John Perivolaris. I knew I'd trip over that. John Perivolaris.
Hello.
Hello, John. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you back here with us. So, what have you been doing since the last time we talked? I mean, that was a while ago, but
Oh, yeah, that was back a year and a bit ago.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I think when we last spoke, I was about to finish my master's, or I just finished it, and since then I've been putting films through festivals. One of them being the one that we're talking about today, Mr. Sleep. And right now things have picked up again. I'm in pre-production on a couple of short films I'll hopefully be shooting in the next 2 to 3 months. So I think things are happening.
Cool. Yeah, now, I mean, we watched Mr. Sleep, and I think the thing that first thing I would like to talk to you about is like you classed it as a thriller.
Yes.
But like we were saying, there are a lot of elements in it that are very much the same sort of thing as you get in horror films.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the kind of the payoff death scene at the end or whatever. Why? I mean, firstly, why did you decide to make it a thriller, not a horror, when it could quite easily have been a horror? And secondly, why did you decide to call it a thriller and not a horror when it's got so many elements of horror in it?
I mean, for me personally, I find it a bit hard to find a clear distinction between thriller and horror. Like, Sounds of the Alarms is one of my favorite films, but I would call it a thriller. But there's loads and loads of horror elements with these. And it's funny because when I was working on the film, I got feedback, I think, from 1 or 2 people who said that, oh, there should be like a big death at the end. But that wasn't my intention. My intention was to tell this specific story and tell it honestly.
Right.
And I felt like, based on who these characters are, and if this were to happen in real life, then this is how things could play out. And that's the place I was coming from. But yeah, like I think I'd call it a thriller, but I mean, in terms of suspense and like building tension and what could lead to, I guess you could call it horror as well. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it works. I mean, works perfectly well as it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with the film, but it's kind of like the last bit of it. I didn't feel disappointed, but I was kind of surprised. There wasn't a death scene at the end of it.
Yeah.
But it worked incredibly well because of the build up of tension to that end. It fits completely with what goes on in there. So it's a great. I think it's a great film. I think it works really well.
I appreciate that. I think it was that I learned a valuable lesson on that sort, because there was no death, but at the end there was more choreography to the fight between the two.
Yeah.
And when we're filming it on the day, unfortunately, it wasn't coming together. The conflict felt forced.
Mm.
So how it was originally going to be was that she was going to stand up to him, which she does anyway, but
Yeah.
in the first drafts, it was in a way that she would leave him very injured and he would leave the house because he was afraid. But when we were there making it, it didn't feel right. The choreography didn't feel right. It just felt like too much. And I realized that as a writer, because that's a writer's problem there, I was forcing the conflict.
Yeah.
And what I had to do is I had to stop, like, right, okay, this is not working. And like on the set as well. And, you know, we have that much time left on the day and we had to get the climax shot then. And I was like, right, I need ideas from everyone based on the characters, based on the story, based on the themes, everything that we've been discussing. Give me ideas about how this could end. And people go one by one, they would give me ideas. I'll be saying, no, because that's not what I'm after in terms of like my vision that I have for the story and the film. It was like, no. And it was the actress, Sonny, who suggested, like, what if she threatens him with calling the police because he's been exposed, which makes sense. And I think it was a piece of feedback I got very early on that I chose not to go with, and it came back. So when it came back, then I'm like, right, this feels right now based on what I've seen, and I think this is the way to go. So that climax, we shot everything we could with the time that we had, and then in the edit we put it together. So I think something that ending is struggling a little bit with is that it goes a little fast. And there were shots that we were not planning to use that we end up using there to give that sense. So I would still keep that ending probably if I shot it with hindsight. However, I would make sure that certain shots that we're using in that ending last longer. So you can have that satisfaction because it is a little abrupt.
Yeah.
So I do see your point that, I mean, you're saying about like you're surprised that, you know, there was no death, but I think that you have that sense of surprise because there was something missing. It was that climax is a little shorter than it should have been.
Well, it's interesting, that sort of thing. It's like I don't know if you've ever seen the film Equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fight scene at the end of Equilibrium, which you expect to be this huge, massive, drawn-out fight scene because that's what it normally is in that film, in that sort of film. But it only lasts a few seconds because of the fact that he kills the guy so quickly, and you kind of go, oh, that's weird. I wasn't expecting that. But because you weren't expecting it, it makes it more interesting. But I think that's the thing, because you're expecting there to be something else happening at the end to what actually happens. You kind of feel, oh, okay, yeah, it's, you know, it's a very interesting way to do it. I really liked it.
I appreciate that. I think personally, I do. Again, if I went back, I would have given a bit more time so it can be satisfying. But again, it was a valuable lesson in writing to be like, right, don't force the conflict. You know, it was like people telling me about someone dying at the end as a suggestion, and turns out I believe it was more about even less than that. You know, like don't have the over the top violence, even like, you know. But I think everything else I'm very happy with, and at least, you know, it's much better what's on the screen now than what could have been up there if I wasn't like, no, this is not working. We have to find something else out right now.
I will say, John, I'm very impressed with this film because there's one part of this that you've done in the film, even as you've classed as a thriller, which the amount of horror films and everything I've seen has never ever done. And the scene or the shot where she's watching the video and sees what he's been doing to her eye genuinely turned my stomach. And I've got quite a strong stomach. I can view and watch a lot of stuff, and I have done. But sat there and watched that, and I sat there afterwards like that genuinely made me feel nauseous. I was like, and I sat there afterwards. I was like, I'm so impressed the fact that I've actually found a film that someone can do that to.
That's. I'm sorry and I'm grateful, I guess. I'm glad. I mean, do you want to? Are you thinking specifically like the shot when he licks your eyeball?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Right. Do you want to know how this was done? I'll
Yes.
show you.
Yeah.
I just happen to have an eyeball here with me. Yes.
That's what
Oh,
it is.
right.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
What we did was, so we shot that eyeball being licked in the bathroom of the flat we were filming in.
Yeah, yeah.
What you have is this square of a person's, like, yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a wee eyeball here. So
Cool.
you pop that in
Mm.
and you keep it there, and you have someone lick the eyeball. So
It
you
was
don't.
very well done. It really was very well done.
I was like, I was saying, I had the conflict in my head. I'm like, I know it's not real. I knew it wasn't legit. But I was still part of my brain going, no, that's just too much. And I'm like, and I was sitting there arguing with myself while I was watching it. Going, it's not real. And then my head was going, yeah, but that's how good it was. The fact that I was having that conflict in my head, and it made me feel that way.
I must admit, I think the effects that you use, that sort of thing, and those sort of effects, especially, and I mean, I give full kudos to Mark, because I know how you work with him. He's an incredible artist as far as lighting and camera work and things go. But the effects, the lighting effects, and the special effects, and that sort of thing for the night scenes where he's going into her room were fantastic. They really were.
Yeah, he did a great job. Because it was the idea of him being silhouetted and it being a mystery of what he's actually doing. And yeah, I would say Mark knocked it out of the park of lighting that and capturing that.
Yeah,
Just,
he has got a really good touch with the lighting and the camera work.
Yeah, I agree.
So the question is, where did this idea come from? Was it something you just came to you, or was it something that actually happened to somebody you know?
Right. So thankfully, I didn't come up with this idea on my own. Thankfully, this is not something that I'm thinking about. So this is something that's happening. This is a fetish, and I don't remember what it's called now, but I did research. So the way I came across it is there was an expose online on YouTube. Someone put this video together. They came across this thing, and it was like a half an hour long video where they scoured the internet and they found all that stuff, and just being so common. And basically, it's a fetish that is a combination of being sexually attracted to eyes, and it's another fetish that has to do with rape.
Okay.
It's a combination of those two. So it's not just to go and lick someone's eyeball and stuff like that, which is a fetish that's also a thing. But the person has to be sleeping, and someone goes while they're sleeping and they do these things, they play with their eyes, they lick them because it gets them off. That's important that the person doesn't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's horrible. And yeah. And that expose I saw had like actual footage of these people. So like seeing that green screen and that green, like these are things that I saw.
Wow.
And what happened was I watched this expose, and then for 2 or 3 days I just couldn't take it off my mind. It was so haunting and so just like it was just there. And I'm like, and I thought that, you know what, if it makes me feel that way, that sense of dread and horror, then I think if I were able to convey that into film and take you there, how I felt when I came across this, I think that could be quite an engaging horror. And of course, something I did enjoy doing this film is that every video that I came across, and this mostly women, I was like 95, 98% women, and there's like a 2% of the victims being men. These women, they never get a chance to defend themselves and stand up for themselves, because to go and do what these people do, they have to drag them in some way, maybe out of alcohol or something else. In the case of this film, was something else. So I want a story, a film where I'm like, you know what? No, I want to see someone figuring this out and standing up for themselves.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It's interesting because it's I think this is possibly one of the first films I've seen that has, I don't know, I was going to say a found footage element, which I actually like, because most films that have that kind of thing in it I really haven't liked. So that's quite an interesting thing. But
I
how
do
long?
appreciate it, but it was all like, it all came from research. It was,
Yeah.
it was recreating, you know, like the close-ups, how the eyes appears in the thumbnail and stuff. That's all like true to life, I guess.
So how long have you been working on this one?
Well, funnily enough, I was writing that January 2021, and
Right.
we filmed it in March 2021. And it was at the time we're in post-production on The Hand That Feeds You. And so when I was here talking about The Hand That Feeds You, I was like, I had just finished or recently finished this film. And how did it go about? How was it? Can't recall right now, but basically I put this on the side because I think I was disappointed with the ending.
Right.
And I just left it on the side. And that's like I showed it to a few people, and the reactions were good, and they were very engaged. And I thought, but you know what? I think there's something there. There's a lot of stuff I'm happy with it other than the ending, the performances, Mark's cinematography. So I thought, you know what? The music I think was great by Chris Belsey, sound design by Tom Heblet. There's a lot of good stuff there. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put it out. And I put it out to a few festivals, not too many, and it's won awards and stuff, which is great.
Yeah,
So like, you know what, all right, you know, like there's something here. Yeah. So, and that's the film I got COVID on. That did it. Yeah, we were in that flat, and I was staying in that flat with someone else, and I think we both got COVID.
Right.
And I have to say, you know, proof to PPE, because we're filming in March 2021. There were no vaccines,
No.
and we're able to film this because it was part of our master's course. So we had educational reasons to leave the house. So, and on the last day, and I must have been infected on the last day based on the timeline of me showing symptoms. I made lunch for half the crew. So I made lunch for like 6, 7 people while I was infected. And no one else got infected.
Wow, that's incredible.
And the reason was I remember I was like microwaving pies and stuff. There was like a pie shop across the street, and I'm microwaving these pies. But I'm like, right, washing hands. I'm wearing a mask, washing hands, touching the thing, putting it in, washing hands again, taking it out, wearing the mask, and all these things. I had COVID, and it didn't go on the food. It didn't infect anyone else. So that was like the proof that, like, you know, PPE works. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Actually, just said then, John, this is one of the walls, and as we've said on some of the other ones, as well, we spoke about, it's the fact that quite a lot of your films seem to do that at the moment. But I want to know is sort of everyone sort of reacts to it differently. But how was your reaction when you first got told that one of your films was up for an award and been nominated, and then the reaction when you actually got your first award?
Oh, I mean, I started winning awards with a film I made called The Orthodox, and that was in 2020. And it was, well, I've won, the first award I've won was in 2016, and it was for screenwriting, and that was like out of the blue and stuff. And that was very exciting, and I wasn't expecting it. But I was in a bad place, so I didn't appreciate as much as I could have. And then I won an award for best directing on what's called the 48-hour film project, and that was a big win. I remember that's something because, and I remember as well, I wasn't sure how to approach directing. I wasn't sure what my process was, and I I made this film as part of the 40-hour film project, and it was the first time where I got a decent sense of what I'm supposed to do as a director, and that was good, and I felt comfortable. I also loved the script that was written by my partner, Joe Osborne, for that film. And I was very excited, and I directed the way I want to direct it. So based with the stuff that I learned along the way up to that point, I felt comfortable to direct actors and try stuff. And I felt comfortable to be like, I want to do this because I prefer this. And I was able to make a film where I'm like, yes, I'm happy with this. And not only, not that I'm happy with this, but that this feels like me. I didn't write the script. I was, as I tend to be by that point, hands off, like letting people being autonomous and just being there to nudge them to get them a certain place, but them really doing what they're doing and letting them do it. But it was not like, this is me the most in terms of in the film. And I won Best Directing for that. And it came with a cash prize to go to Orlando, Florida on the bigger festival. And yeah, I didn't pay a penny to travel there. They gave me the money to go there, and I went there, and I was in the States, and they took us to Universal Studios to promote the studio, to be like, if you want to film here and stuff, and that was like a big thing for me, because it was like winning this award and seeing all these things coming from it, and it was for something where I'm like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to direct my way, my own process and stuff. And I got a reward, and that was important. And since then, I've been lucky with winning awards for different projects. And it always feels good. It's a nice pat on the back, but it is also nice going through that recognition a bit. Because the rejections now feel less painful, I would say. It still sucks, of course, if you don't get selected or you don't win. However, having had that, I felt to me it satiated my need for, I guess, acceptance as a filmmaker. And now, that's good. I don't know where I would be now if I was looking forward to winning an award if I hadn't won one, and I was making films and stuff specifically to be recognized instead of telling stories I want to tell. So I think in that sense, awards have been great. Because I have I've won like 19 awards, like best film, which includes everyone in the team, of course, and I've won like 5 awards or so as a best director. But nonetheless, nobody's knocking on my door to give me money to go make a feature or something or work on a TV show. So it's like, right, well, it doesn't bring that. I haven't been like in that sense, but at least it's brought that recognition to be like, yeah, all right, okay, I'm decent at this. I don't think I'm great. I don't, I'm decent. That's good. It's good to have that. Yeah, to have that recognized.
Yeah. So you were saying you got a couple of short films you're working on at the moment.
Yes.
Tell us anything about those, or is it all very hush hush?
Well, at the minute, there's one we're planning to shoot in early December with this DP who I've met recently, and that's very exciting, making a new contact. And I am in pre-production for. It's interesting, right? I'm in pre-production of a film I would call a horror film, a horror short.
Right.
And without, no, I can't spoil it. But it is a horror film, but in certain areas it's similar to Mr. Sleep.
Okay.
Which I would call a thriller.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that now, and it's another script that I haven't written. So okay. Mr. Sleep I wrote. I've written, Maureen Street it's a drama I made, my last film, and that I've written. And The Hand That Feeds You was a script I didn't write. It was something that was submitted to me. And this horror now, it's the same thing. It was submitted to me by a writer, and I thought, oh, this is good. Like, I'm vibing with this. I feel like I know how to tell the story. So I'm doing that, hopefully shooting that in February.
Oh, cool. Yes, look forward to that. I'll definitely look forward to those coming out. So, I mean, we've both said that we would love to see what you could do with a feature film. Now, is there any likelihood of that happening anytime in the near future?
God, I don't think it's up to me. I mean, what is up to me is to continue making films, which I am, like this horror I'm planning, hopefully something in December. But yeah, there's people who say that, there's no such thing as luck. That's not my experience of life.
No.
Not to be pessimistic, and I'm not being pessimistic, but it's tricky the way I'm doing it, because it may be easier to become a director if you have mastered another craft and you're finding yourself into directing. So if you've been a cinematographer for many years, then you can make the transition, or an editor or a writer. But I started directing when I was 25.
Right.
And I've been directing for 5 years. And basically I've been doing jobs to pay the bills that have been paying the bills, but also are related in some way to producing. So right now, for example, to pay the bills, I work as a production coordinator. And my day-to-day job is producing stuff, day-to-day tasks like scheduling and booking talent and all that stuff, with the hope that I can use that to direct my first feature and other stuff.
Yeah.
Because now I am working with big budgets, like budgets that I'm working with now are like the budget for a low budget feature, for example, that I'm writing now, is half the budget that I'm working on right now as a production coordinator. So I'm hoping that can be a way. But going back to what I was saying, if you are a cinematographer, you can move into directing, I don't know, when you're 40s, 50s, 60s, I don't know, later in life, because you have mastered one of these crafts. But the way I'm approaching it, from the age of 25 onwards, I'm 30 now, I'm just directing. And the tricky thing with that is that it may not happen. And it's a scary thought, because you're like, you know what, like I'm all right at this. If someone gave me money, I know I can get the film made and I can tell the story. I'm not saying I'm Spielberg, but I can, I'll tell the story. The performances will be good. People will watch it and will have a fun time, which is all I'm looking for, really. However, luck is involved, It's like, it's one thing to win an award and another thing for the right person to see that you've won an award and then to check out your showreel and go, ooh,
Well, I mean, the thing is, I mean, if you're working on other stuff now, I mean, they're doing the production side of things, working behind the scenes and that sort of thing on bigger budget things, you can also do a certain amount of networking, and that can be very important when you're looking to move on to bigger budget stuff and to bigger films, because quite often you meet people, or you'll strike up a friendship with somebody who can have an influence on whether or not you take that next step.
Yeah.
And that can be very, very important.
Yeah, and that's, again, it's down to luck. You're right.
Yeah.
It's coming across the right people. And yeah, I'm doing everything I can. And like I said, I'm continuously filming, because however long it takes, I don't know how long it would take. I don't know if it would happen to make the advancement to feature films and TV. The important thing for me, more important than luck, it's the practice. That's something that I can control.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a while, not a while, but it's been a couple of months since I was back in pre-production and rehearsing and working with actors and stuff. And I'm like, right, is there something small that we can do that, will work as a story with a smaller budget, so that I can practice, so I can write, direct actors, direct heads of department, practice. Because by doing that, if I continue to practice, if luck does come away and someone does give me the chance to direct a feature, I want to be ready and be like, yeah, all right, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I can see this through.
One of the things I noticed during the whole lockdown thing and that sort of thing is there are a number of short films that are out on YouTube now, which were basically just sort of one person in the cast and the person directing it, and that's about it. You know, they kind of made these really kind of like, but they and then sort of because they were doing them, they did things like, you know, single set scenes which were fairly easy to put together and to stage. And but some of them are really good, because if you get a good script and a good actor and the set looks good, then you can kind of make a good film, a good sort of like, you know, 10-minute film just with that on its own.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a thing I came across called I think they say boiling the rice.
Right.
And basically I don't know how true that is. It was a video on filmmaking. But basically it was saying that sushi chefs in Japan,
Yeah.
they spend 10 years of their career just boiling rice.
Yeah.
Before they move on to dealing with the fish. So a more experienced sushi chef will be taking care of the fish, cutting it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Choosing the right stuff and all that. But the person starting 10 years of their life just boiling rice. And the idea is that you get super experiences like second nature, boiling the perfect rice, and then you will move on. And what can happen, and I do see it happening with starting filmmakers who have limited resources, but limited budget. Maybe they don't have that much experience. Like, oh, I'm going to make my first or my second short film. And it's like, it will have everything. There will be time traveling. There's going to be dinosaurs and ninjas and robots.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but half of that is true.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
One of them is like, oh, wow. The thing is like, there's people who have been doing it for many, many years. And they can twist production values in such a way that you'll be amazed by what they can accomplish. But that's not your first or second feature. Usually it comes out of experience. I mean, and this is not to say, you know, if you're listening to this and your first feature is going to be like this thing that has everything, I think the best thing to do is make that film.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a good chance it's not going to work, but make that film because there's the off chance that it will work. And even better in a way, it doesn't work. And you recognize why it doesn't. That's a big part. Just something not working.
Yeah.
So just something failing is not enough. That would just suck on its own. But if something fails and you can look at it and be like, well, I did this, and that. Next time I think if I do this, and that would work. That learning process, that recognizing that and thinking about how to improve, that's invaluable. And that's where the practice comes in as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's we've said on the show, you know, sort of when we review short films, not so much for the feature films because they're a different creature, but with the short films, we always try and find positive things to say about them and try to find ways of saying, like, you know, okay, you're early on in your career, maybe you need to look at doing some different things, doing it differently, but learning from this and moving on from you, use this as a stepping stone. And even people who've been doing it for quite a while sometimes make mistakes or make films that you kind of look at and go, that doesn't work. You know, and it just happens sometimes. You just kind of as you say, try to learn from it and try to move on and do better next time.
Yeah, I mean, making films, there's all you can learn and doing it and eventually become a crafts person in a way. And, you know, like I feel comfortable now that if I get a script, I can do the best I can, because I write as well. I write all the time, and I've written a bunch of feature scripts, and I'm comfortable with that. These are my two strengths, I would say, is directing and writing. And I know if I get a script, I can do a rewrite if it needs it, and I know I will, you know, improved in some way to be able to tell the story, and then I'll tell the story, and the story will be there. Now, the quality of that story, how good that story will ultimately be, a lot of it's out of your hands. As a filmmaker, I feel, as a creative, you know, and as a storyteller, all that stuff, you can only do the best you can do. and then there's a point where it's out of your hands,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Um, so yeah, I would say, and again, not to like what I was saying before about, like people trying more than they biting more than they can chew. I think that's absolutely fine. My first short, it wasn't that big, but it was quite big. People were getting killed and stuff. And I look back and I'm like, yeah, it feels like I shouldn't film because I wanted to do everything myself or most things myself. And that was a detriment to the film. But there were cool things in it. And the themes that were in that short film, they're themes that I'm still working with. It's just my films now look and sound and feel a little better.
Yeah.
And that came from just making short films and trying stuff and working with good creative people and learning from them and then letting them do their thing. And then the finished work is so much better than you could have ever done on your own, and you finish work and you're just grateful, and being grateful is a lovely feeling to have at the end of a busy day.
It is. I mean, it's the thing. I mean, another friend of ours, a friend of mine that had been on the show a couple of times, Emma Dark, she was saying to me that one of the important lessons that she learned was the fact that you don't have to do it all yourself. That you can ask other people to do it, and if you find people who can do it really, really well, then you know that if you call on them to be on the film, you don't have to worry about that sort of that element of it. You could concentrate more on the things that you are doing.
Absolutely.
So it makes it a lot easier for you to make the film if you're working with people work the way you like to work.
Absolutely. And I feel that I mean, I'm at a stage now, again, I think I'm decent, but I'm at a stage now where if certain areas of production, if I get someone who's a little less experienced and stuff, I could help them get to a certain point. But at the same time, I don't want that, because I'd rather work with people, like you say, who I can trust, who know what they're doing, they can make something good, and just let them do it, Because the way that I like to work is we discuss the story, we discuss the characters, if it's a cinematographer, we discuss the visuals, if it's actors, we discuss the performance and the characters and all that stuff. But we do all that groundwork and get on the same page so they can operate autonomously, but within the sandbox that I want them to operate on. So, and if they ever go away out of the corners of that sandbox, then that's fine. I'll be there to nudge them. But hopefully when you do that, you get to a point where you go on set, and ideally 90% of the stuff they do, and then you come in and you do the last 5-10%, like, for example, now, and again, that has come from experience. I haven't just come up with that. And when I say I do the first take with the actors, we've done the rehearsals before, hopefully before we're on set, and we've rehearsed the scene a bit, like 20-30 minutes, while the camera team is setting up lights and the sound team is sorting out other stuff. I'm rehearsing with the actors in a different room. And then when you go to take one, I'm sure there's the actor who can be like, just saying, just dumping information on them. Whereas I'm like, okay, let's go. And there's no direction. Let's go for it. Let me see what you do. Because I could go and be like, blah, 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 blah. And then you probably are going to start when the cameras are rolling, instead of just being like, just go for it. Because usually what's going to happen is, if you've done all the preparatory work, 90% is there. And then you can just go and do the last, they do a take, and then you're just going to adjust a little bit, actually just do that little thing. And that's, I think, getting quite technical with directing actors, but like, at that point, the tricky thing is, like, when you're going to adjust something, like the cardinal sin from in many instances with directors is telling an actor what to feel.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that because that's not playable. You're looking for direction. I don't know how familiar you are with that. You probably are very familiar, but maybe someone listening to the podcast won't be as familiar, maybe. And it's the thing where it's like finding something playable for the actors. So like and you know, we've worked together, and I hope for the most part it was that, Andy, where it would be like I could come and tell you how to feel. Like, oh, you know what, you're scared. Well, how can you play scared? Because with feelings, you don't decide what to feel.
Yeah.
By definition, feelings just happen. So you can't go and tell an actor. I mean, you can, and people do it. And sometimes if you just don't have something in the moment, you can just say how you want the actor to feel. But at that point, for the only way for the actor to make that work is to do that directing work in their own head and be like, right, okay, what can I think of? Where can I take myself mentally to go and feel this? And
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example in The Hand That Feeds You of that, because I have to say, you know, like talking about an actor coming in and giving you 90%, it's great. You gave 100%.
Thank
I
you.
remember there was very little that I had to give you. You're just, you understood the character, and you understood the story, and you understood what I was doing with it.
Yeah.
So that was very easy. Yeah. I'm trying to, do you remember any direction that gave you like, or is there a direction you remember that you're like, oh, that's a horrible direction that John did?
No. I think no, there were a couple of times when none of us seemed to be quite sure whether something was working, and we had to kind of discuss it between us before we worked out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
But in the end, we kind of got there. It's,
that's a good point as well. Actually, that's something else. A director they have a lot of responsibility, and I get that. And I think that's something I remember with you, and happens with all actors. It's a big part of the job. Is like, as an actor, when you work with a director, if you're not directing yourself, which usually you're not going to, you go and you give something honest. Like, you put yourself out there. The best description I've heard about acting is, as an actor, you're private in public. So there's a scene, and then you do a imaginative work to get yourself there mentally, and then there's cameras, there's people and stuff, and there's sweaty sound man holding a boom pole. There's just like, and yet you have to ignore all that and give something very private and very real.
yeah.
And usually that's like coming from a discussion with a director, and a director is asking you what they're telling you what they're looking for, and they give them that. It's very hard at that point to monitor yourself. And the responsibility of the director is to be like, this is working, this is not working. And it feels to me like a massive, massive failure if I find myself telling an actor that they did well on something and I wasn't right. There's a big responsibility, because it's going to happen. Like, many times an actor is going to come and say, oh, I don't know if this is working. And when I've had that, 8 out of 10 times, it's working. It's great. It's what I'm looking for. That's brilliant. But it's my responsibility to either say yes to that or say no to that. Sometimes, doesn't happen as often, an actor will be happy with what they did, but it's not what you're looking for. And it's your responsibility to go, okay, listen, this is great. However, we're going to do another take and try this time.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, thank you very much for your kind words about my acting. But it was, I think the thing was, the whole thing on the set was it was all very easy. Everybody was working together. Everybody seemed to get what was going on, and it seemed to work really easy. And again, that's the important thing about surrounding yourself with people who are good at what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important to, like I said, like creating that sandbox for them,
Yeah, yeah,
where you're not just, if you go and have them do anything, you're gonna have to be really, really lucky to get something that's going to work, because it's a matter of vision, it's a matter of what you're going for, it's a matter of mood and tone and what themes you're actually focused on. If you
yeah,
don't have a grasp on that, it's very, I believe it's very unlikely it's going to work. On the other side, if you're micromanaging everyone, it's very unlikely people are going to do decent work. You can get the best cinematographer, the best actor, the best composer, and you're going to be so specific to them, and you're going to limit them so much that they're not going to do the best work they can do. You're going to be like, I can't believe this person,
yeah, yeah,
this famous composer did the score for this. That's not good at all. Most likely, and this is generalizing, if every person is shooting on all cylinders and you see everything is coming together well, not a big part of it, but a part of this comes from the director. And at
Mm.
that point, paradoxically, someone who's doing a great job as a director, they become invisible because everybody else is doing a great work and they just disappear in the background.
yeah, yeah,
That's the way I like to work. Get that, and then it's like you don't think about, oh, Mark, look at the cinematography and that stuff and the performances. Mark did the cinematography. I didn't do it. The performers did the performances. I didn't do them.
yeah, yeah,
The success of my job is creating that environment that they're comfortable to do good work. And when you watch it all together, it feels like one film,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, and the opposite of that is if you watch a film and you know there's a lot of talent and fucking everyone sucks, definitely it's the director. For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. That's the thing, it's like, what do they say? Like, success has many parents, but failure is an
Yeah.
orphan. Like, and in that, it's real. Like,
Yeah.
if you see actors that you know are good and
Well, that's
cinematographers you know they're good and they're not being good in this film, there's
that,
problem.
that's. I mean, some of the feature films we've done, you look at them and you go, it had a big budget, it had big name stars, it had a big company behind it, but the film is rubbish.
Yeah.
And you just think, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a bad script. It could be that. And then it's a question of like, how do you? But you know that even if it's a bad script, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen as a director, if you find yourself in a situation where it's like you're forced to write the script, maybe there's a gun on your head, I don't know,
Yeah,
and you go and make that film, it doesn't work. Like that's fair. But as a director, and that's when against the director's responsibility, if you get a script and you don't know if it's working or not,
yeah,
that's also your responsibility, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking to us again, John. It's been great talking to you. As I say, we both enjoyed Mr. Sleep, and I'm glad to hear it's won awards and everything. And hopefully, you were saying it's going to be available for people to watch online soon.
Yes, so I'm hoping when you're listening to this, you've already watched Mr. Sleep, because what I'm planning to do is when this is live, I'm going to release Mr. Sleep on YouTube.
Okay.
And when I post it, I'll say, hey, here's Mr. Sleep, and here's an interview I did for it. Watch Mr.
Cool.
Sleep first, because we're gonna spoil the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Interview.
Fair
I
enough.
feel in this interview I've spent most of my time shitting on directors and just pointing out the flaws in the film. I
No,
think what
no,
I
no.
mean is just like, oh, this didn't work in the film, and directors suck. Like, but I I am happy with the film, and
Yeah.
and I think directing is a good profession for anyone who's listening. Not shitting on those things.
No, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of directors out there that would agree with every word you say. It's just one of those things. Good luck with everything in the future, and we look forward to seeing more films from you in the next few years. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was, as always, a lot of fun.
Thank you. It's been really good talking to you. Thank you, Scott, for your input,
thank you for
being here.
thank you for letting me be part of it. It was very interesting to talk to John again.
Definitely.
So,
And thank you to the people out there listening, watching, and everything else. And we will be back next week with normal reviews of 2 short films and a feature film. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
The Sciforror Film Podcast.